I think I was around 6 years old. I was playing in an enchanted, in a magical Arabic garden opposite our apartment building. Suddenly, in front of my eyes, I see a sphere of light, and out of that sphere of light, in seconds, a almost like I'll describe it as a laser beam. A laser beam type of a ray emanates out of this sphere of light, hits my forehead, and it's tangible. It's so powerful that I'm pushed into the grass. I have no idea how long I lay there, but when I ran home to tell my mother, she thought I was dreaming or I was making the story up. Okay, this really happened to me, and I adhered to this story. I wrote about it in my books. I talked about it on hundreds, if not thousands, of TV shows. All right, I know it happened to me. Okay, about 15 years ago, one of a BBC documentary was playing in Israel about me, and I was telling this story. The next day, I get an email from a retired Israeli Air Force officer who says to me, Uri, I just saw your documentary. I must tell you this. I saw you in that Arabic garden. I was there. So you can imagine, I jumped on the phone and called him. His name is Abrahami. And I said, what do you mean you were there? And this is what he told me. He was walking on Rothschild Boulevard to his parents' apartment. And this garden was on his right. And he described me, little boy, white shirt, curly hair, black. And he described this incredible sphere of light. And he describes me running to my apartment building across the street. And this huge sphere of fire or light explodes on the facade of our apartment building. And the residue, he remembers something black was left on the face of the building. Wow. For me, this was a private validation that after so many decades of me telling this story with no backing up, no witnesses, I was stunned. And of course, I got together with him. I filmed him. And it is true. He saw me. And that's when it totally dawned on me and validated this occurrence of meeting some type of a phenomenon. Now, I do not know, Ross. I do not know if this was an alien encounter. I'm not 100% sure. I have my theories. I'm not sure if it was maybe a spiritual happening. Maybe it was a down-to-earth phenomenon. I have no idea. But when I met Puharich, when I met Edgar Mitchell, when I was taken to the Lawrence Livermore Radiation Labs, where they build nuclear bombs, when I was taken to the American Naval Surface Weapons Center, and where Dr. Wernher von Braun took me to a NASA secret location, and I enter a refrigerated room, everything kind of snapped back into my mind. And I said, yes, probably. This first encounter was alien in nature. That's all I can tell you. You can ask me whatever you wish now.
Okay. I'm really grateful you told me that story and put it and clarified it for us. One thing I wanted to double check with you is before you had that experience as around about a 6-year-old boy, were you manifesting any of the alleged paranormal powers that you subsequently developed? Or was it after that incident that you had those powers?
You're such a great journalist, Ross. You managed to instill the word allegedly. That's okay. I love you anyhow. So listen, the spoon bending, I believe, came after that encounter. Maybe 6.5 years old, I'm eating soup. And as I lift the spoon towards my mouth, the spoon starts bending and it fell into the soup. Then I realized that I have something that other kids don't. And I started developing this power in school. I would hold a broken watch. I'd reactivate it. I could move the hands of a clock on the wall. I would do telepathy. I basically sharpened this phenomenon. I don't even want to call it a gift because I don't really quite know where it comes from. But I believe that maybe that encounter could have, I'm careful, could have triggered this energy in my brain. But then there were other things that happened, like I stuck my finger into my mother's sewing machine and I was electrified. Then, when I was 1 year old, a British soldier shot 2 bullets into our window in Tel Aviv, and the glass fell and broke all over my body. So I had shocks while growing up. I guess I will never really know the truth whether that encounter in that magical Arabic garden was really aliens contacting me. I don't know.
You have spoken, I watched a major documentary that you did with, I think, the Gaia TV, where you spoke about how you feel you have a purpose and you feel very strongly that you've been imbued with a purpose, with the gifts that you say that you've got. And what is that purpose? What do you think is your role here on planet Earth?
Yeah, okay. Don't make me a messiah or a prophet or some kind of a holy figure.
I don't want it to sound like that, but I'm intrigued. The reason I say this is because I'm kind of intrigued. I've met a lot of people who've had near-death experiences, and I know that as a paratrooper, when you were fighting in the war, you came very close to getting killed. And I wonder, one of my next questions, and you might answer this in this answer, is do you believe that your powers, if I can say that they are powers, I suppose I do have to use the word allegedly as a journalist to be objective, but do you believe that those powers have been enhanced because of your exposure to near-death experiences?
That's a good question. I don't think I can answer that. I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is that we all have a purpose. You have a purpose. I have a purpose. Everybody watching us now, you all, men, women, kids, you all have a purpose. Outside us in the universe, there is infinity. There's no end. No end to inner space. No end to inner space. In the phone that is filming it now, probably there are billions and billions of entities, and there's no end to outer space. And the last frontier is not outer space. The last frontier is our mind. So we are all here on this planet for a short while to do something positive, hopefully positive. And I don't see myself any different than you are or the people who are watching us now. I'm still a very down-to-earth person, born in Israel, and yes, became very famous because of something very freaky, something very strange, something so that amazed and captivated hundreds of millions of people around the world, and still they're still captivated. So we all have a purpose. I believe that my little purpose was to open the minds of people who already believed in the paranormal. I don't give a F about the skeptics, really. I don't care about them. But I do care about people who are open-minded and believers. And we all are believers at the end of the day. You put an atheist in an airplane that is crashing, they will probably shout, "Oh my God!" So it's within us, and I believe that the 60 years of entertainment, the 60 years of entertainment that I gave around the world did something, and it moved something. Tens of thousands of books were written about the paranormal, and they still write books about the paranormal. I was the motivator. I was a catalyst. I was a trigger to something that is beyond our understanding or beyond our belief system.
The reason I ask this is because there are a lot of people, including people in defense and intelligence in the United States, who privately freely admit to me that they believe there is some kind of consciousness that lies at the heart of a lot of what we describe as the paranormal, and that it's been engaging with humanity for a very, very long time. And if I could describe what they say, they assert that the consciousness is increasingly manifesting itself to humans, that it's making itself more obvious, and that what it's trying to do is twig human consciousness. From what you're saying, you'd seem to agree with that analysis.
Very much so. All this, the analysis really boils down to one very powerful and infinite equation by Albert Einstein, E equals mc square, where what Einstein actually proved to the world, that everything is made from energy. You are energy, I'm energy, the people who are watching us are made from energy. We're energetic beings. What that means also, and which Albert Einstein continued to prove scientifically, that energy cannot be destroyed, which brings us into quantum mechanics, quantum entanglement, which you have to ask the question, am I now, Ross, am I creating you or you are creating me? It's mind-boggling, it's mind-blowing, the world of energy and consciousness. This is so beyond us. We're a tiny fragment in a sea of endless universe, a little grain of stone with our knowledge. It's beyond us to understand what really consciousness is. But what is happening, I believe, like you probably believe, is that we're being given signals by a higher, let me call it a higher being, if you want to call it God, or you want to call it some type of a energy being out there in the universe. It's giving us signs. It's pushing us towards a bigger journey. Carl Jung coined up a word synchronicity. Everything is synchronized in the universe. I'm sitting here talking to you, not because you wanted a show with Uri Geller, an interview, because of synchronicity, which means that everything that happens in the universe happens for a reason. There is a reason for this interview. Maybe we both don't know what it is, but it's triggering something. I think that's, in a nutshell, it explains consciousness.
That's a very good explanation of what I was trying to extract from you, Uri. Now, listen, you've already flagged the other major incident in your career that touches on UFOs. And again, Edgar Mitchell has confirmed a large part of this story to my friend privately. During his lifetime, Edgar, the Apollo 14 lunar module pilot astronaut, was unwilling to say publicly that he'd ever had definitive proof of alien life. But privately, he confided in friends, and I've reported this in my book, that he was aware when he had experiences on the moon, he was aware that they were being observed. And he talked to my friend about blue lights that were clearly some kind of structured craft that were following the astronauts during their time in their lunar journey. But he also talked privately to people about something that happened, I believe, at the Goddard Space Center with Wernher von Braun, the father of America's space program, the former Nazi, who I understand embraced you as a friend, even though I'm sure as an Israeli Jew, you must have felt very uncomfortable with his background. But it must have been a very interesting meeting, and I'm intrigued if you can tell me, please, the story of what transpired between you and Dr. Wernher von Braun.
Okay, first of all, what Edgar Mitchell described you on the moon, that's a tiny thing. Yes, they were followed, but the big thing is, and Edgar says it outright, that a UFO, a craft, crashed on planet Earth. They pulled out bodies of aliens. And that's what Wernher von Braun wanted to show me. This is a photograph of Wernher von Braun and me. He's taking me into his limo, and we drive off to a huge concrete building. But let me now backtrack. One day, Ed Mitchell calls me up and says to me, Uri, there's a very important doctor who wants to meet with you. I say, fine. He says he's a NASA scientist. I say, fine, who is he? He says to me, he's Dr. Wernher von Braun. I say, what? Dr. Wernher von Braun wants to meet me? Dr. Wernher von Braun was a Nazi. I've got photographs in the museum here. He's among Gestapo officers. I was shocked when Ed Mitchell told me that, but I couldn't resist. No way. So in the end, with some conflict in my mind, because half of my family were murdered by Nazis, I say to Ed, take me. We get to a NASA base, and I'm, by the way, at that time I worked with the CIA, and the CIA gave me a tiny Minox German camera. It's also hanging here on the wall, because I spied for the CIA in Mexico, because I was very close to the president of Mexico, and the CIA gave me some missions to do in Mexico. I take that little camera with me and I give it to my brother-in-law. And I say to Shippy, his name is Shippy, short for Samson. I say to him, Shippy, when we enter Wernher von Braun's office, you've got to snap a photo because nobody will believe me. So we enter Wernher von Braun's office. Mitchell is with me, Shippy is with me, and there was a CIA man with us too. The first thing that Wernher von Braun does, he pulls out of his pocket a tiny little piece of metal, and Shippy snaps. And Wernher asks me to touch the metal and tell him what I feel it is. So I place my finger on the piece of metal and I tell him, Wernher, this is not from here. He says, you're right. This is a piece of a UFO. Okay, wow. Then he says to me, come with me. He takes me into his private office, and there is a safe in the office. He opens the safe, and inside there's a bigger piece of metal, about this big, maybe 12 inches. He holds it in his hand, and he says to me, Uri, now place your hand on the piece of metal. Tell me what you feel now. So I place the palm of my hand on the piece of metal, and I immediately tell him, Wernher, this is from a UFO. And he says, you're right. Now come with me. He takes me out to the parking lot, and this is the photo. It's an enhanced photo. Somebody made it, more color. And he puts me in a limo, says, sit next to me. I sit next to him. He gives an order to the driver to drive. We drive into the heart of the base. We come to a concrete building. Nothing is written on the building. There's a soldier standing by the door. He opens the door, and Wernher says to me, follow me. We go down 3 or 4 flights of floor into the abyss of the building.
Is it just you?
No, just me and Wernher von Braun. Then in the corridor of that 3rd or 4th floor, there are hooks on the wall, and on the hooks are hanging orange Antarctica coats. You know those warm coats that you wear in Antarctica? They're
Sure.
orange in color, but they all had a NASA logo on. He says, put one on. And he puts one on. I don't know what the hell is going on. And then we turn around the corner. We come to a huge metal door. He opens the door, and I see an enormous refrigerator. It's cold. I walk into this cold space, and listen, Ross, I'm definitely not an idiot, and I definitely was not hypnotized. With my own eyes, I see alien bodies. Some were mangled. They're all in glass tubes. I mean, I'm just mind blown, shocked. I was stunned. I froze, and it suddenly everything dawned on me in that refrigerator room that this is all real.